Well, welcome everybody. This is Bruce Jefferson. Welcome to my episode on Recipes for a Great Life. Today we have an amazing guest, someone who has helped me personally get going with so many things. Just a great guy. He's got so much energy. He's full of life, and it's such a, what's the word? Exciting and motivating. That's the word I was looking for. When you speak to him, because if you're in a bad mood, you won't be after just a couple of minutes talking to him. He's got so much going on. So Daniel Gomez is his name. He's got a program, Daniel Gomez Inspires. So Daniel, welcome to the podcast. And will you mind introducing yourself, please?
No, man. Hey, Bruce, it's an epic honor to be here with you on your amazing podcast, man. I'm honored to be a guest. And my name is Daniel Gomez Inspires, and I love people. And Bruce, when you were introducing me, I was like, who is he talking about? I needed to motivate myself this morning. And I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful thing when you wake up and you realize sometimes we're just human. Because so many times I think I put too much pressure on myself. And today I just wanted to be Daniel Gomez, not Daniel Gomez Inspires. But I remembered I was going to be on your podcast. So I put on my cape just for you, Bruce. So thank you for having me, my friend.
Cool. Well, it's a cool shirt. I like it. The colors, they have a really good contrast that really stands out. Looks nice.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's funny you say that because I was real hesitant to buy it. And then my wife goes, if anybody can pull that shirt off, Daniel, it's you. So buy it. So, but yeah, man, I'm excited to add value to your audience, Bruce. So thank you for having me.
Well, good. Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you being here. This is such an honor for me. And I'd like to start out just to get to know people a little bit more, and then so they can share with the audience, and then that will help them connect better. And the first question I would really like to ask you is, how did you get started doing all this?
Well, life has a way of just putting those little curved roads in front of you. And I was on my road to buy a dealership. That was my goal. I was saving up money. Then lo and behold, about 4 years ago, that idea of mine just went out the window because my wife called me and I could barely understand what she was saying, Bruce. All I heard was the word breast cancer come through the phone. And our lives changed for the better. And you're saying, how can that change for the better with breast cancer? Well, I'll tell you, no one wants to see their wife go through breast cancer journey, Bruce. But at that moment, I realized my prominence at work, my job title, the money I had saved in the bank, no matter what success we had, it wasn't going to save my wife. So it really had me call on my higher faith, which is God, and just really believing that God was going to forgive me again, because I had served God before, and just having one foot in, one foot out, it just really opened my eyes that I needed God even more now than ever. And by his grace, my wife is cancer free now. And I had this crazy idea during this first year of my wife's surgeries and rehabilitation, because my wife had 8 major surgeries at that first year. I resigned to take care of her, Bruce. And at that moment, I was getting ready, putting on the tie, and my old tie rack, I had this email that I had saved for some reason from the automotive industry when I had gone and spoken at a school of high school students. And I read that email and I just started crying because I felt the Holy Spirit just say, I want you to be a motivational speaker. And that's where their journey started. And let me tell you, many people thought I was crazy, Bruce.
Yeah.
Including myself sometimes,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I thought I was crazy, but I think I listened to your episode 1, and it really just, without even realizing it, just your introductory episode was amazing. It really spoke to me. And I think I was kind of that guy in a way too. We live our life in such a way that we force ourselves to think that we're happy, and we're not. But I can tell you the best thing I ever did was leave just running multi-million-dollar corporations and open up my own business for the second time. And lo and behold, here I am 4 years later, adding value to people and doing the best that I can do.
Yeah, my family, we've had, I think, well, 2 for sure. My mom and a cousin, or not my cousin, both have had to deal with that. And the stress and everything, it takes it out of everybody. But I learned, well, it's a long time ago now, that no matter how bad something is, something good will come from it. You don't see it at the time. You'll never believe it. You know, you think, how can some of this tragedy and this horrible thing? But if you look long enough, well, the most important part is that you look. And if you don't just, I mean, a lot of times we crawl into that hole and we never want to come out again. And that's what I did. And when I went through my struggles of attempted suicide 3 times and deep depression, I was like, how could anything ever get better than this? And so after the last time, which was in 2005, that was in the summer 2004. And I had to get past that. And once I did, I started to look and believe that something good was coming. So I actually moved back to my hometown, back to our family place. And the only thing I wanted to do, because it's out in this rural north central Montana. And I mean, I'm 25 miles from town. And I was like, I just want to go out there, be by myself, and I don't want anybody to bother me.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that because I did a lot of looking. At the moment, I couldn't see it, but I remember looking in the mirror, Bruce, and I didn't like what I saw. I saw an arrogant, egotistic gentleman, and it was me. And that reflection doesn't lie. No matter how much cologne we put on, or how many times we change, or the car that we buy, that reflection doesn't lie. I knew there was some things that had to change in me, Bruce. But if I was to tell you right now that the journey that I've been on this past 4 years of how much I had to change, I would have never imagined I needed that much work inside of me. But I say that because you ask, look, and I love what my wife said. My wife said, she never played the victim mentality. She never said, why me? She said, why not me? And because she took that lead in her own journey with her breast cancer, it allowed me, my children, to really not see it as a bad thing, but really just support her and embrace it. But the beautiful thing that a lot of healing came out of it for all of us. And what I mean by that is you don't realize what's buried deep down inside our souls, inside our hearts, because we suppress all the bull, right? We suppress everything. But the moment you open yourself up and you allow God to come in and heal it, I can tell you that the relationships that we're enjoying now, if you would have told me that 4 years ago, I didn't even think that was a problem, but I looked and I saw these problems, and I'll tell you that you're 100% correct. When you look, I promise you, you're going to find.
Sad part is so many people don't ever want to look. And I was kind of that way. And after I got home and deciding I'm just going to sit here and, you know, be a hermit, and God, he's like, you know, that's not why you're here. I didn't create you to be a lump sitting on, you know, out in the middle of nowhere by yourself. And so that started a journey. And I mean, that was in 2006. And so it got me here to where I am today through all of those, you know, those trials, those struggles. But the most favorite term I've ever heard, and I believe the first time I ever heard it, was Ed Milet. And if anybody doesn't know who he is, I just recommend you Google him and you'll find out real quick. He's an awesome guy. And the thing that stuck with me was that things happen for you, not to you. And the first time I heard that, I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude, you're so full of it. Because I just thought he was just trying to say something, you know?
Yeah.
But there again, the Holy Spirit's like, you need to listen to that. And so I did. And I learned to quit arguing with God. And it was a smart move.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said, right? Because so many times we want to be that hermit. We want to be just that lump because it's easier sometimes.
Right.
But I can tell you there's a point in your life where you got to stop living on the sideline.
Yeah.
You got to stop living on the sideline. And it's a lot easier, Bruce, to cheer other people on. But sometimes you got to cheer yourself on, right? Because you were born for a purpose. You're not here by accident. No one is here by accident. And the very fact that you were right, the word that comes to mind is curious. That curiosity gets you going, and maybe I was born for more. And you ask yourself that. And I can tell you that if you would have told me that I was going to be doing the things that I'm doing today, I would have never believed it. But it all arrived from the seed that my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer and the transformation that's come on. I came out being a motivational keynote speaker, and from that grew my business coaching, my executive coaching, corporate trainings. Now we have the award-winning podcast, the Daniel Gomez Inspires Show, and Sticker Shock Speaking Academy. But I say all these things because so many times we put so much focus on how am I going to do this perfectly and how is this going to look? Who cares? Just start where you're at. And that's what I did. And I can tell you that seeing my wife go through the growing pains of really finding her inner beauty, because she had a double mastectomy, Bruce. And you and I both know, as men, if we were to use our genitals, we would lose our manhood. Well, when a woman loses her breast, she lost her identity. She lost her womanhood. And just going through those months where she didn't have her breast and then going through the reconstruction of everything, I'll tell you what, it made me really look at life from a different perspective, to really be just more grateful, more appreciative of her, of my kids, of people like you, of everybody. And it's not to say that I didn't appreciate people, but I think so many times we hit that platform, like you say, right? Your word you used was hermit and lump. We plateau, and then we just never do anything from there because we hit that status quo in our own thinking, that comfort zone. And then next thing you know, we're actually dying, but we don't see it because we're not seeing it from the outside perspective.
Yeah, very well said. It all that stuff resonated very clearly and personally to me. Things that I've witnessed other people struggle, and I pay attention to that because I didn't know what it was for years, but in the last few years, I've learned that it's empathy. And in society, empathy is a bad thing if you're a guy. You know, it's not macho. It's not all this fake, phony BS that somebody put out. And another person who I started learning from and watching videos and reading her book is Brene Brown. She's got some amazing stuff on there, and she's got a couple of videos. One's a TED Talk, and the other one is on YouTube. And she talks about that, and it's just amazing when somebody she's put thousands of hours into studying that, and so she's a no BS lady. I mean, she'll tell you the way it is, and she's such a gifted speaker. And so once I learned what it was, and that empathy, because I can look at people a lot of times and tell that they're hurting where a lot of people don't care. When I see that, or I hear it in someone's voice, or like if, let's just say, like some of these YouTube videos where these compilation of human fails, or whatever it's called, and somebody will be riding a bike and they'll just crash really hard on the pavement or whatever. When I see that, I feel it. I mean, you can just feel that pain because I've had it happen. And so, I mean, I love that you shared that the way that you did, because the more guys, the more men I hear say that, the more it encourages me, because not enough do, and somebody's got to lead from the front.
Yes, I agree. One thing that comes to mind when you said that is, I want your audience right now just to picture that we're sitting at the park having this conversation, me and you, and we look across the walkway and we see a gentleman there, and you can tell by his body language that he's a little down, right? Discouraged. But when you look into a person's eyes, you can feel that. You can feel that defeat. You can feel whatever they're going through. And that's where that empathy comes in. But you can also feel when somebody is in a great mood, right? And if you ever want to know how a person's really, really feeling or what they're going through, look into their eyes. The eyes are the gateway to your soul. And so many times we're so busy that we're not self-aware that we don't really take the time when we're talking to somebody to really look into them and deeper. We just glance with it. And I can tell you that when you said what you said about empathy right now, it just reminded me when I flew to Asia last year to go speak in October. And I'll tell you, I thought I was pretty empathetic. I thought I was pretty compassionate. I said, you know what, I'm an okay dude, right? I said that to myself, but I can tell you, flying over there to Qatar, the richest city in the world, and then flying to Pakistan and seeing some of the way that just the accommodations that they have, the way they live, I'm thinking like, wow. I was blessed to the hotel that we stayed at. It was in the city. We were in several cities over there, but one of the cities we were upstairs on a rooftop, and you could see literally over the living quarters of these houses. And I was just like, wow, like my compassion just grew. And when you have that gift of compassion just expand within you, you really become even more selfless. Because I was pretty selfish. I was real selfish. I'll tell you, when I was younger, it was all about Daniel Gomez. And now as I'm getting older, I'm glad that that opportunity opened up for me to go speak in Asia, because when I came back, I'll tell you, I boarded the plane, Bruce. I boarded the plane and I said, God, what do you want me to learn from this? Like, what's the takeaway? And all of a sudden, Bruce, I just started crying like a baby. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I was just crying and just like, it's like a new level of gratitude came upon me.
Yep.
I'm flying back to this amazing country. I'm flying back to this amazing country. And even though that, there's a lot of things that we got to fix in America, it's still great. But I say that because as I came back, I cried literally probably for like about 30 minutes, just being grateful and with a different heart. I came back with a new heart. But it's exactly what you're saying. Sometimes you got to get out of yourself. And when you get out of yourself and you start seeing people without judging, right? Because there's one thing that I learned actually not too long ago, is that when you judge somebody, when judgment sits in, it's just a reflection of the deeper issues within yourself that you haven't dealt with.
Well, you nailed it right there. Most of my life, I was like that. I didn't understand it. But once I did, whew, boy, I had to ask for a lot of forgiveness. And I even went to people to apologize to them, because when I growing up, I was very selfish, but I was selfish out of fear, because I had no self-worth. I didn't deserve anything. I didn't deserve to be noticed. I didn't deserve compliments and all that kind of stuff. And so out of that comes survival. And I mean, I had a great childhood. I mean, we weren't beat. We always had food. We had, we didn't have any of the stuff that so many people have to deal with. But I was the youngest of the kids, and I had to go through mom and dad's divorce in person. And because I hated all the stuff that was going on around me, I was the go-between. So I'm trying to fix everything, and you're 12 and 13, and you're trying to fix things. It's not your job. And so that's where it started. And then when it really hit me was, again, you're talking about going to a foreign country. When I was in the military, we went to Panama. We were down there for 3 weeks, and we took the train from our base into Panama City. And we went through part of it, and the one place was called Cologne. And at that time, it was one of the poorest, and maybe the poorest area in Central America or something like that. But it was just row after row of cardboard shacks. And I'm like, what? I didn't know what it was. And there's tin here and all this kind of stuff. And we talked to some of the guys that were based there, and they're like, no, that's where they live. That's their home. And I'm like, I saw it, but it didn't register. And I'm like, I'm going to go sleep in a bed. I get 3 meals a day. And, other people were laughing and making fun. I never did.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that I got to say is, it's when you really see how blessed you are, and when you really start dealing with those issues, right? Sometimes we can't see it because we have pain in our hearts and our souls that we suppress and we suppress. And the more you suppress it, just imagine a trash compactor. The more you push down, Bruce, is the more and the more just of anger, jealousy, bitterness, resentment you built in, but you don't see it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we're triggered. And then that's when you judge those people. But I'll tell you, I want to tell your audience right now, you can only go so long before suppressing your emotions is going to catch up to you. And it's going to show up to you some way, somehow, whether it's through a sickness, right? When you think about people that have arthritis or they have high blood pressure or diabetes and these, it's because they don't deal with, there's unforgiveness, there's this resentment, this bitterness inside them. And then you have other people that have a void in their life that don't deal with these issues. And maybe it's trust issues. So they're trying to find just that fulfillment in other things like alcohol or shopping or whatever it may be. But they don't see it because they're too busy judging other people instead of dealing with the things within and their very core. So I want to challenge your audience right now. Take a moment and ask yourself this. Do I judge people? Am I jealous of people because of the fact that, right, I have unresolved issues inside of me? And I can promise you this, Bruce. If you ask yourself that question, I don't care how far along you are in life, we all have resolved issues. And even me, I started off by telling you, I've been 4 years in the making. Well, let me tell you, I'm not even done yet.
Right.
But the thing is, you have to allow yourself to heal and you have to forgive along the way. And many of us, exactly what you said, we've been taught from infancy, from childhood, that men don't cry, men don't do this. Get up, wipe your knees off, right? What are you doing, you sissy? Be tough. Or we're taught, right? We're taught to just really, how can I say it? Don't deal with it.
Yep.
We avoid it. So I love the conversation we're having because I think it's going to bring healing to a lot of your audience because they need to understand that that very thing that you see in somebody else that you don't like, the likelihood of that being in you is very, very high. I know they don't want to hear that, but I'm telling you that the likelihood of it being in you, it's just a reflection of your seeing, and you're seeing the reflection of you, not in the bathroom mirror, but in that person in front of you that you despise.
Yeah, boy, that's speaking to me way more than because I was that person. And once I realized it, and I still catch myself doing it. And now it's like, what is this person? Why is this person making me mad? And part of it is because they have a gift or the ability to do something that I have yet to be able, not be able, let me rephrase that. I have not yet developed that because I don't have experience in it. There's no more saying I can't, whatever. No more negative self-talk, which that used to be me. That's about all that ever came out of me. And just that alone, if you start with anything, start positive self-talk and end anything negative. And that alone will start changing your life in ways you can't imagine.
Yeah, I love what you said, right? Today, so this should be I got a little phrase for your audience here, right? Today I can't, but how can I, right? Today I can't, but how can I? Today I can't be a podcast host, but how can I be a podcast host? Today I can't be that motivational international speaker, but how can I become that motivational speaker? There's always a way of how can I, right? Because you can do anything you put your mind to. The thing is, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to be that podcaster? How bad do you want to be that speaker? How bad do you want to really help people? Because helping people is not easy. I'll tell you, there's been many conversations that I had or just situations that I've been in that they're not easy because let's be honest, sometimes when whether it's a coaching session that I'm in through our Shield of Faith coaching or I'm speaking on stage or doing the things that I do, sometimes it's not going to set well with everybody and they're going to be triggered, right? So you got to learn how to deal with those emotions. And so many times we don't deal with those. We don't learn how to deal with the other person's emotions. And you know what I've learned though, Bruce, that's been amazing? Is sometimes I don't say anything. I just nod my head. And I think a part of maturity for me has been, I don't have to react. I don't have to respond to every comment, every accusation, every question, or even it's funny, even on LinkedIn, I remember some posts I used to put 4 years ago and somebody will make a comment and I'd be quick to react to it. And now it's like, it's your perspective. I respect it. If I don't agree with it at all, right? I'm not a political guy. I'll just delete it. But it's a comment about God. You know what, depending on what it is. But I've learned that I have control if I'm going to respond to it or not. And, you know, 99% of the time, I think maturity is just when you can sit in silence and just let the other person assume they won. You don't always have to have the last word. And I'll tell you, that's hard for me to say because Daniel Gomez always wanted to have the last word, Bruce.
A number of years ago, I saw one of the best sayings I've ever come across. And it says, never argue with an idiot because they will just bring you down to their level and beat you with experience. And after I let that sink in, I'm like, you know, there's an awful lot of wisdom in that. And then the other thing is people that want to fight, if you don't fight back, they got nowhere to go with it. Somebody calls you an idiot, you go, oh, well, thanks, appreciate it. You know, or thanks for noticing, or, you know, something like that. But you just lower your tone, whatever, and you don't get into that verbal combat. Usually about 30 seconds, they walk away like, oh, that's no fun. They're not going to react, you know?
Yeah, well, you know what I find it pisses them off even more.
Yeah.
It's because they poke at you and they poke at you and they poke at you and you're like, it is what it is. Yeah. And sometimes this is for somebody listening to us today is you just gotta, if you're serious about really dealing with these issues, if you're judging people and you have unresolved issues in your heart and your soul, for me, I really had to find a different park to go hang out at, right? I always call it the playground. You need to find a different playground. And if we look at my social media feeds today than where they were 4 years ago, totally different feed, totally different content. But the thing that's more important is the friends are different.
Yep.
They're different. And because nothing's going to hold you back sometimes from forgiving others or letting go of the things that don't serve you anymore. Because if you're hanging out, say with that one old friend that says, oh, who gives a shit? Or they just have that mentality, well, then that rubs off on you sooner or later. And then you don't care either. But when you start hanging around with people, it says, you know what? I really want to grow. You're like, you want to what? Yeah, I want to grow. And that's the crowd that I went on. I went looking for those people, but I will tell you that most people, they never experienced the transformation that I went through, that you went through, that the Bruces and the Daniels went through because there's a moment in your journey, Bruce, that you're going to get lonely. I was lonely, I would say, for 3 or 4 months, and to where you want I call it the rubber band effect. You want to rubber band back to who you were because you're familiar with that, right? Nothing kills our dreams. Nothing kills our healing like commonality, because we go back to what's common, right? Even the Bible says a dog will return to its vomit because it's what it knows. So it's a time right now for us to not return to that vomit, to that junk that doesn't serve us anymore. And to realize that once you go through that process of becoming who God created you to be, that on the other side of that mountain, on the other side of that valley that you're in that middle, in that struggle, that once you continue through, you're going to taste the victory. But so many people in life, we start the journey, we're excited, we start that journey, whatever that journey may be for you, and we never taste victory on the far side because we get stuck going up the mountain, or we get stuck in the valley because we don't want to deal with the issues that we need to, Bruce.
Yeah, that specific thing right there is going back through the pain. Most people won't do it. But once I did it, the pain of change was less than the pain of staying where I was, because I could not take it any longer. That's where the suicide stuff came in and the depression. But once I waded through it and got to the other side, it's like dropping off that super heavy backpack after you've been climbing that mountain you're talking about. And you get to the top and it's like, hold me down. But the thing is most people don't want to do that. And it's
Well, look at this. You did it. You did it. Look at what you dealt with the pain.
Right.
And look, I want your audience to hear this. Bruce Jefferson dealt with the pain, the things he didn't want to deal with. And when you fluff the soil, I say, right, when it's time to get that soil and fluff it, because now you got a garden, you got to put some seeds. And when Bruce decided to do that, now he has a book. He's an author. Now he has an amazing podcast. It's being syndicated all over Spotify, iHeart, and iTunes. Look at that. But if you would have wallowed in your sorrow, if you would have stayed in that self-pity, you would have never experienced the joy of being an author. You know how many people are authors? Right? It's like I think less than 2% of the world is a published author, and you accomplished that, Bruce. Think about that. But I say that to your audience because when you stop wallowing in your sorrows and you stop playing that victim mentality, when you start to forgive yourself, maybe you need to forgive yourself. You listen to this podcast and you need to forgive yourself or forgive somebody. Beauty comes for your ashes. You get that beauty for your pain. And that's what Bruce is experiencing. Man, I just want to say congratulations again on all your successes, Bruce. And it's really been an honor just being here with you. I'm loving the conversation, man. So thank you so much for allowing me here again. I know I said it, but I'm really grateful because when men have conversations like this, it heals our hearts.
Yep. Exactly right.
Because it's a release valve. And so many times people can't have heart-centered conversations. Even women and men can have heart-centered conversations. And they would really just have conversations like me and you are having today on your amazing podcast. So many hearts and souls would be healed, Bruce.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Receiving compliments and all that stuff. I never used to be able to do it. And now I'm getting much better at it. And so, with the conversation we're having here, there's so much to it. And I want to keep that momentum, but I want to kind of change into some, we've talked about that hard heart to heart stuff and the things that get to us. But now I'd like to kind of lead into another direction of, that happiness, that motivation, those things that make us come to life. And so with that thought, what makes you come alive? What excites you so you can't go to sleep at night and then you can't wait to get up, that you just got to go do?
Now what excites me is my family excites me. My wife excites me. My son excites me. My daughter excites me. The fact that I was crazy enough at 44 years old to leave my job and take care of my wife and start my business at Daniel Gomez Enterprises, LLC. And then from that comes Daniel Gomez Inspires, and really just showing my kids that it doesn't matter how old or how young you are, you can follow your dreams. And that's what excited me. If you would have told me that I'm going to have the house that we have right now, that I'm going to be just an international best-selling author, to have the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show podcast, I wouldn't have believed it. But I do that because I come from just beginnings where you're not supposed to do that stuff. You're not supposed to do this. So what keeps me going in the morning is when I get to really serve others and add value to others and just really see the transformation in their lives. So I would say this. What really motivates me is transforming people's hearts. And I'm not talking about a shallow transformation. I'm talking about a core transformation where they truly start to believe and saying, you know what? Maybe I can. Maybe I can be crazy enough to start that podcast. Maybe I can be crazy enough to start loving myself. Maybe I can be crazy enough to forgive myself because my failures don't make me a failure. Maybe I can be crazy enough to where I inspire my son to start his own little detail company. It's just part of inspiring others. And that brings me joy. As a matter of fact, Bruce, whenever I'm having a challenging day, like yesterday, which is one of those days, it was one of those days when God had me in first gear and I was in second gear. So I just felt like, man, I'm turning left, he's going right. So I'm like, well, it is what it is. But just praying for people and going out there and serving, it really gives me peace. So I've learned when I'm stuck in one of those days, that's kind of like a little fun, because we all have those days. It doesn't
Right.
matter who you are. Even
Yep.
Tony Robbins has those.
Yep.
And you wake up, and when you give without expectation, and you just go out there, and whether it's buying somebody lunch or just saying a prayer with them or leaving them a text message of encouragement, I found that helps me to really stay inspired and motivated. So that's kind of what gets me going, is just really adding hope to the hopeless, adding inspiration to the ones that are depressed, and letting people know that, guess what? It's not where you start in life, it's where you finish. That's what keeps me going. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I learned a long time ago after I broke through all of these, that once I got to the other side, I learned how much I love to give, and the people don't know where it comes from. Like, I've gone through the drive-through at a, fast food or a coffee shop or whatever, and you pay for the next, say, 5 cars or, whatever. It's like, just put the total on my credit card. I don't care. Just put it on and do whatever. And you drive off, and you'll never see them. And, or if you do something for somebody, maybe you donated something or paid for something. Like, I remember the original pastor I had at the church when I first moved home, he was, they didn't have a lot of money. They were young, had a family and this and that. And they had a vehicle and the tires were shot. And I kept telling him, dude, you need to get tires on that thing. And he's like, yeah. Well, he's one of them hard-headed guys. He was just going to keep going. And so they went out of town for a few days. So I took his vehicle down to the gas service station. I said, throw a set of tires on this thing. And when they come and ask who paid for it, I said, don't tell them. And they're like, okay. So I kept it a secret about 6 months. And he kind of thought it was me, just because the way I am now. And so one day I finally was like, yeah, okay, it was me. Yeah, you figured it out. And I've done that for other people. And so if you do something simple as give, and that could be starting with seeing somebody when you walk by, just smile and nod and say, hey, or hello, good morning, whatever, and just leave it at that and keep going. That can change somebody's day. And those are the things that just make me come alive.
Well, I love what you said, because we can't outgive God.
Right.
And if God's prompting your heart to do something like that, just do it. And I'll tell you, the flesh is always weak. The flesh is not going to want to do it. But when you're being led by the Spirit, and there's times when God will say something and I'll be like, are you sure that's you, God? And then he reminds you, yes, it's me. And you do it. You just feel so good.
Yeah.
So let me say it again. You cannot outgive God. But if God's touching your heart to be that blessing, follow that lead. And it's just rewarding. And another thing that I would say is that when you come to this place of really being selfless, I think you and I both said it right. We're real selfish. Now that we're selfless, that's the high of the day, right? Who can I inspire today? Who can I motivate today? Who can I just really add value to them? And that's what it's about. It's just really knowing that somebody out there is drowning and you're their life jacket. You are the miracle for that person. And so many times we underestimate what one word that we say can do for a person's day, for their life. One word, one message can change their entire trajectory of the day, of their life.
Yep.
But when you sit back and you say, wow, today I'm going to be somebody's miracle, because you are. Think about that. You never know. Maybe the person behind you, they needed a sign from God, or maybe they didn't have the money and they were just counting pennies to say. But when you learn to be that miracle, because we might be the only book, Bruce, that somebody ever reads.
Yep.
And if we put out the wrong story, they're going to miss out on who they could have been. So there is accountability on our behalf to truly live to the potential that we have, because nothing is going to kill us, yourself as a person, than that untapped potential. Because, if we don't live up to our potential, it ends up poisoning our body, because it becomes that unfulfillment within us that causes that unhappiness in us.
And that starts that poison in our body, those diseases, all of those things. So one of the first things I started doing was just like, okay, if I was low on money or, whatever, I was like, what can I do? I can at least text somebody, or I can messenger them. Hey, what's going on? Just thinking about you. Hope you have a good day, whatever. And then just leave it. And I've had so many people respond. You don't know how bad I needed that. Nobody contacts me and stuff like that. So if you're one of those people out there who maybe you don't have money to give and you don't have much time or whatever, do that. And maybe you don't even have there's still a lot of people that don't have cell phones, and I actually applaud them. But you could always pick up a phone and call. You could write them a letter, a card, whatever. And the thing that I personally is huge for me is food. I love cooking. I love giving. I love watching people eat, especially if I did something that came out good and they like it. And so I wanted to ask you, what is your all-time most favorite meal you could ever sit down and have?
Well, the one that I cook, I'll tell you, it's pretty easy. My son, everybody loves my baby back ribs. And it's been an amazing journey just to really enjoy that, because I would hate to barbecue before. But as my son got older and he participated with me, he became that young boy, right? And so I remember my grandpa, putting the lemon, putting the seasoning on the ribs, on the brisket, whatever it was he was making. And I just remembered that. He never taught me to say, but I remember that watching him, and I remember how you would do it. And so one day I said, I'm going to make some ribs. So me and my wife went to HEB over here. It's a supermarket in San Antonio, bought some baby back ribs, and should have never done that because now everybody wants my ribs. But I'll tell you what, just to see the joy of people enjoying the messy barbecue sauce, and man, this is good. And then the meat falling off the bone. I'm getting hungry just saying the story. And it's just amazing. And then so I would say I love to barbecue some baby back ribs, and then alongside with that, some potato salad, and my daughter makes some amazing rice, and my wife makes some amazing beans. So I think that's nothing better when you have that type of meal with the barbecue with the family. As a matter of fact, coming up here is going to be Memorial Day, so we're going to have a barbecue here this weekend. But nothing brings a family together sometimes like food.
Yeah.
And for me, it's baby back ribs.
Yeah. And family is not just blood. To me, it's anybody who wants to join. And food has this amazing way to draw people together.
Yeah.
Because even if you're a quiet person and you're uncomfortable in a setting, but if it's really good food and you're hungry, you're going to sit down and eat. and just the fact that they're there and you can see them, maybe say hello to them, whatever, it don't get any better than that for me.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. My wife was just telling me this here yesterday that my daughter invited one of their friends over, and I was like, okay, that's cool, right? For Memorial Day. And my wife was telling me, Alicia's just like you. I'm like, why? She's like, well, because Angel and his girlfriend, his wife, didn't have anywhere to go. And, she invited them over because she thought that they might enjoy being here with us. And I know who they are. But it's amazing when sometimes, right, because they're from a different state and they don't have any family here in Texas and San Antonio. And just welcoming people like that, you don't know what it could do for their self-esteem, for their life. And so I always try to invite somebody that maybe just who God puts in my heart, right? God, who do you want to come to the barbecue? And, it's good when you say, how can I say it? When you really say words of encouragement to them, and then while you're having a meal, and just to let people know you care, right? I always think of the great Maya D'Angelo that says, people always forget what you say, but they never forget how you made them feel. And nothing makes people feel better than a good home cooked meal, whether it's soul food, barbecue, or whatever you may be making.
Yeah.
Food has a way of saying, I love you through the tummy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's for me, I used to be that person. I remember when I first moved home in 2006, right across the street from my dad's house in town was a city park. And they had Sunday potlucks or whatever kind of community church, whatever. And people kept inviting me and I wouldn't go because I was still so shy and insecure and all that crap. And now I'm the person who's helping put on the food and going and inviting people. And if they don't show up, maybe some people are working and like, especially we have barbecue, we cook up a big pile of different kinds of meat. It's like, oh, hey, there's people at the hospital. Take a bunch of this, put it on a tray, take it up to the hospital for the staff, just so they can be a part of it, because they're working and all that. And so that's where that giving, it feels, nothing feels better than giving to me, period.
No, I agree with you on that. I'll tell you, when you give, it brings a sweet, sweet sense of joy to your heart, to your soul. I agree with you on that one. So let me ask you this. So what do you, since I said barbecue, baby back ribs, do you like to barbecue?
That would be the understatement of the year. That is my biggest passion is food, bringing people together and sitting back. I'm always the last to eat if I'm cooking because I want to sit back and I just want, I want people to enjoy it and I want to observe what they're doing. Because when they're sitting and they're eating it, when you're talking about ribs, I'm just like, yeah, okay, competition's on, buddy, because but no matter, and the more barbecue sauce, the more whatever dripping down their arms and all that, the happier I am. And
yes,
it just is such an amazing thing. And I love all kinds. I love different ethnicities, I guess, like the stuff, how I was trying to say it, but the foods from so many different places. Oh, my absolute go-to meal is a giant ribeye steak on a grill with mushrooms, salad, coleslaw, big old glass of iced tea. And
oh, you and my wife would get along great. She's a big ribeye person. She's a big ribeye, so I definitely agree with that.
Ribeyes and ribs, though. You
can't lose with those. You can't lose with those.
No.
Man, I'll tell you what I said. It reminds me back of memories when I think of barbecue, and it brings me back when we'd go to the park on Easter or just different days. There was a big park here in San Antonio called Conception Park, and that was our park growing up as a kid. And I miss those days sometimes as I'm here talking to you about it. Those days kind of are gone, and of course, we move on and stuff, but you're bringing back some good memories having this conversation. You're triggering me over here, Bruce.
Yeah. Well, I know we're kind of getting close to our time here, but I wanted to let you know that I got this.
Woo! There you go.
Finally showed up last night. I got it at like, I don't know, 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So I haven't even had a time to read it, but I know this is one of your books. You have more than one, right?
Yeah. You Were Born to Fly was my first international bestseller. And it's really an amazing book you can get on Amazon. And it's a book on just really building your confidence and self-leadership. Because if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. And it really just helps you to find that place where you realize you were born for more. You were born for greatness. You were born for success, Bruce. Your audience was born to fly. And when they read You Were Born to Fly, it's really going to just make a difference in their life. And I promise you, they're going to take back some amazing, they're going to get some amazing wisdom from that. And then our other book is Sticker Shock, which is the day you realize you were worth millions. If you need help in sales and building your confidence in sales, you can't win in sales without confidence. So Sticker Shock's going to help you no matter what type of industry you're in. Account executive, Sticker Shock's going to definitely help you out with that. So thank you, man. I appreciate your support on the books, but I would say this, the biggest thing that I would say that you're going to take away from You Were Born to Fly is that you're going to realize that you matter. There's an underlying message that I write is you matter. And most people don't realize that they really matter. So as we come to the end of your show, and thank you for having me again, is I want your audience to understand that you listening to this podcast episode right now, you matter. You matter more than you realize. And it doesn't matter the failures you've had in the past, the mistakes you've had, the very fact that you're listening to this podcast, God is saying to you that you matter. And if you need more inspiring messages, or if you want to follow me, my brand is Daniel Gomez Inspires. You can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. And we definitely want to add value to you. And what I want to do for your audience, Bruce, is text the word confident. That's CONFIDENT to 26786. And I want to give your audience a free training of our 7 steps to fly daily. It really helps you to get your mornings going, gives you a PDF and some emails of a morning routine, and to really just tell yourself that you matter. Because, you know, most grown men never tell themselves they love themselves, Bruce. Most human beings don't do that. So yep. I'm honored to be able to give that to your audience.
Wow, thank you. That's awesome. I know from my experience with you and the work that we've done and things like that, how important that is. So that's an incredible offer and gift. So I hope everyone takes advantage of that. And because you mentioned that I had a book, I want to do this. This is my, let's see, where's the deal at here? This is my book, and it became got the little tag down there on Amazon, and it became a Amazon bestseller on January 28th of this year. I don't know, it might be coming through backwards, but
yeah, congratulations.
And man. So I want to do this just for a historical thing, put these together. So,
you know, awesome, man. I love that. Congratulations. And man, it's been an amazing time. So I want to say thank you for having me. And I really enjoyed this podcast with you. So thank you, my friend, for inviting me.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of it. It means the world to me, and to get this podcast going and, you know, picking up momentum and stuff like that. I want the very best on here that will help and inspire and lead, and the people who aren't afraid to go to those hard places to talk about. I think that's the biggest problem we have in this country with you know, they talk about the suicide rate amongst veterans is right now, they say it's 22 a day. And I have some friends that are firefighters, and they say that the average is about 400 firefighters a year commit suicide in the US. And so dealing with these things, I mean, I want us to come on this show and have fun and laugh, everything we can do. But I also want to emphasize how important it is that we reach those who are struggling, having a hard time, and are contemplating ending their life. And so I pray that this is going to be a launching point for this to happen. And so, Daniel, thank you so much. And it's been, I mean, how can an hour go by that quick? I don't know, but it does. So thank you again. And do you have any last comments or things you want to share?
I would just say this. I think my heart was touched. I know my heart was touched today, and it was transformed. So I'll tell you that in life, you meet some great people, and you're one of them, my friend. So I just want to say thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, listening to this, never undervalue who you are, because you bring more value than you realize. And if God can take penicillin from mold, think about that. Penicillin was made from mold, stinky old smelly mold. What can he not do with your life when you invite him? So this is Daniel Gomez Inspire saying thank you for tuning in, and thank you for having me again, Bruce. I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you again, Daniel. I really appreciate it. This has been a great thing there, this whole podcast thing, and what it means to me to get going with it and to actually make it a reality from just that dream. You know, it's one of those things you can't even put into words, but when it happens, it takes a few days for it to kind of to settle in. You know, it's kind of like buying something you wanted or somebody, you know, however. So anyway, well, thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch up with you again. That wraps this week's episode of Recipes for a Great Life. Thank you for tuning in, being part of the show. Really appreciate it. I hope that brought you some value. And if it did, please share that information. We'll catch you next podcast. Thank you.